Okay, well, time is running out for federal party leaders to drum up support as we head into the final weekend of the election campaign.
And let's talk more about what's happening with the race here, which, of course, is clearly tightening in the latest numbers from Nick Nanos. At least nationally, it's a 4.3-point difference. So let's show in our CTV News political commentator, Scott Reid, this morning with more on this. So the national numbers look like they're tightening. Scott, what are the parties then doing when they take a look at numbers like Nick Nanos's, and how do they apply that then to their final weekend strategy?
So they dig under the national number because the national number tells you only so much. You've got to look at where you at in the regions. That's what's going to make the tail of the tape when it comes to the seats that you win. So BC is a coin flip. Why is Pierre Poilievre, with just a couple days left in this campaign, flying to British Columbia? Why is he going to Vancouver Island, of all places, where we think of, beautiful trees and lovely trails and people that eat granola for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? He's going there because those tend to be direct NDP conservative battles. And so he's hoping that with the NDP weaker, although their vote's probably concentrated on Vancouver Island, he can go and secure some of those seats. And then you start to look at places like Ontario and Quebec. And you're going to see that Carney is going to be in Ontario again. My guess is Carney does not leave Ontario, other than when he goes back to Ottawa to his home riding. I don't think you're going to see him leaving the Golden Horseshoe. He's going to hit Sioux this morning, and then I think he's just going to stick in the Golden Horseshoe, try to harvest those seats. They got about a 7-point lead, the Liberals, in the province of Ontario. They absolutely must maintain that lead. If they do, they will win a majority. If they don't, this thing could get tricky on election night.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be regionally kind of like the battle between the East and the West when it comes to Liberals and Conservatives. Scott, maybe you can touch on this notion of voter efficiency and how that can potentially not work in the Conservatives' favor.
It lends directly into what we're just talking about. So when you look at that big national number, you say, well, gosh, if it's 3, 4, or 5 points, the Conservatives must be right in it. The challenge is that a lot of their vote is concentrated in certain places. So they're going to stack up monster wins in rural ridings and in the West, particularly on the prairies. But, when we talk about the East-West split, like even that is interesting because when it comes to voter efficiency, meaning, will you win ridings by 60-40, or will you win ridings by 41-38? Let's talk about Edmonton. Now, that's in the West. But in the city of Edmonton, the Liberals will probably do very well because their vote in Alberta is concentrated in Edmonton. It's concentrated in downtown Calgary. So that's the challenge. The Conservatives will stack up monster wins in large numbers of ridings in rural areas and in the West, but then they will lose suburban and urban seats. And they have to try to figure out a way to get their vote out in those, particularly those suburban ridings. You think about Brampton, Mississauga, York. They've got to get their vote out to the polls. Otherwise, they will lose a bunch of ridings by a sliver, and election night will be tough. Voter efficiency, it's a real crusher.
It really is a thing because people look at some numbers and they go, well, how did they get it so wrong? It was so close. But that sort of explains why the math works out a little bit differently. Scott, I'm curious. I know you talk to people from all parties, but clearly you have a lot of Liberal contacts and connections. What's the feeling amongst the Liberals you're speaking to going into this final weekend, looking at those numbers, understanding voter efficiency, seeing the schedule and sort of the highlighting of the GTA? How are Liberals feeling?
Jekyll and Hyde. So objectively, right, cerebrally, intellectually, right, they know that this thing works structurally in their favor, that they have the numbers, they should be able to win a majority. But emotionally, everybody's a human being, man. And you look at these numbers tighten on a national level, and you think about, well, sometimes you wonder if the Conservative vote is slightly underrepresented in the polls, which is another factor. Sometimes you see that the actual turnout is 2-3% higher for the Conservatives than has been tracked. And so it's white knuckle time for the Liberals, even if they think in their, in their cool antiseptic laboratory that they're ahead, home and in their hearts, they're worried. They're worried, and they know that they've got to get the vote out. So everybody enters this, last election weekend and toward voter day, really feeling the pressure. And God help you, if you're a New Democrat, you're wondering, is there any way that we can salvage official party status? Because these numbers look tough. And when the national numbers look as close as they do, you got to be scared if you're a New Democrat that that's going to encourage your vote to strategically slide to the Liberals, because a lot of New Democrats will say, I can't take a chance on Pierre Poilievre winning. So there's a lot of dynamics and a lot of anxieties in this last weekend for all the campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, very quickly, last question for you. Do you think the ballot question has changed, or do you think it's kind of equalized between cost of living versus Trump and our sovereignty?
It's a really interesting question. Like, if you follow most of the pollsters who have been asking this, they will tell you that cost of living, overall economic management is edging slightly ahead of how we deal with Trump. But here's the nub. Carney scores well on those issues. Over the course of the campaign, his position as preferred prime minister hasn't really drifted down very much. He's still, according to Nick's numbers this morning, a 14, 15-point lead. And part of that is propped up by his ability to woo Canadians' confidence on these economic issues, even on cost of living. So where Poilievre may have a slight advantage, 3, 4, 5% on him on those issues, Carney enjoys a 10, 20% advantage on the issue of Trump. You lump it all together, and again, the advantage slides to Carney.
Okay, well, it's been our advantage for the whole campaign to be talking to you every morning, Scott. We've really appreciated this. I know we'll talk to you one more time on Monday morning and then start seeing you again in person, I hope. But yeah, thank you for all this, Scott. Appreciate this.
We miss you, Scott.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day.
Okay, you too.
All right, thank you.